Everybody, like, one of the nice things that Phil did was like, well, here's how you fix it perfectly, but do you really need it perfect or do you need it okay? Here are your options.
Sure.
Whereas like other companies were like, we want to do all of this.
Yeah.
So like having that kind of cordial behavior and like straightforward answers made it a lot easier to go through this process.
Hi, this is Robin with Dalinghaus Construction, and today we are in Mission Viejo, in the home of Richard. Thank you for having us out today.
Oh yeah, thanks for coming.
And we're just going to talk a little bit about the project we did here at your home. So why don't you let us know why you needed to have Dalinghaus come out?
So we bought this home 2 years ago, and within moving in, we started noticing cracks on the walls, doors not closing correctly, and so we sort of determined that we had some settlement issues. And oddly enough, Dalinghaus was not the first people we called. And so we got a few structural engineering companies to come and actually give us an idea of what the problem was.
Sure.
Dalinghaus was actually the second one that we went to because my family sort of does a rule of three. Mm-hmm. You always get three opinions. And so once we saw and everybody told us what we had, and then we settled our other issues, we sort of moved forward with the repairs, and Dalinghaus had the best price, so we ended up going with you guys.
Awesome. And how was your experience with the other companies you went with?
So with the other companies, there was a lot of like these cat and mouse tactics. Prices started higher, and then once we brought Dalinghaus in, it was like, well, here's another option. And Phil was really amazing when he came here, and he gave it to us straight. He was like, look, this type of product that we're using, there's only like 2 different companies that make it. There's not really a difference. So this straightforward, like, here's what you get, no BS answers was really an incentive for us to go with you guys. And then what we did was we ended up letting you guys compete, basically. Mm-hmm. And so the other companies' prices came down drastically to try to compete with Dalinghaus, but they didn't really come exactly there. Mm-hmm. So when it actually got to a point where 2 companies gave us the exact same bid, but because of you guys being more honest and more open about the whole process, the type of materials being used, the cost of the materials and all that stuff, we just went with you guys because it was a nicer experience.
We're glad you did.
Yeah. And our house is fixed, so
yeah,
we're happy everything's good to go now too.
Absolutely. And then I know you mentioned Phil was your specialist. Mm-hmm. That came out here. And then he took some measurements and found you did have an affected area that was down about almost 2.5 inches, 2.4 inches. So basically with our house, starting from this corner being like ground zero, we had like a 3-inch decline towards the rest of the back of the house. Yeah. And at the worst part, I think it was 2.9 inches. Wow. But that whole back side of the house, the north side of the house, was at 1.5 to 2.9 inches below like our 0 point out here. And what's weird is like all 3 companies, when they came and did their measurements, they all showed the same thing. So we kind of knew what we had going on, but it was a better option of going with Dalinghaus with how things worked, how smoothly, how easily questions were answered. And just the straightforward, like, well, here's what it costs, here's what we do, here's like the warranty and all that jazz was just made it so much smoother or easier to choose you guys over the competitors. Awesome. And I took a look at your repair plan, and it looks like Phil's plan called for 19 locations of push piers. Mm-hmm. And looks like your project manager for the project was Dimitri Piers. How was it having Dimitri here working on your home?
So that was also really nice because we weren't exactly knowledgeable of what to expect with this project. So we were all worried that we had to somehow find like 2 weeks of time off from work for both me and my wife. And after talking to Phil and Dimitri, when we found out like you guys bring like a porta potty and you actually only need access when we're doing the lift, And it was just like straightforward. Everybody was nice. The whole crew was nice and very cordial. I felt no issues or stress like leaving the garage door open for them to do the work on the inside, even though we were at work. And nothing on our property was like damaged. Everything was taken care of, and everything was cleaned up nicely at the end of each day. I really liked the fact that Dalinghaus did those reports, that Dimitri would take a bunch of pictures throughout the day, load up the report so we could see that. So everybody was just really nice and straightforward and polite too.
Awesome. And overall, you had a great experience with the Dalinghaus? Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's never fun to have to go through this kind of stuff with your house. But with companies like Dalinghaus, it makes it easier to sort of figure out what you need to do, and as well as like compromise, because while everybody, like, one of the nice things that Phil did was like, well, here's how you fix it perfectly, but do you really need it perfect, or do you need it okay? Here are your options.
Sure.
Whereas like other companies were like, we want to do all of this.
Yeah.
So like having that kind of cordial behavior and like straightforward answers made it a lot easier to go through this process in fixing our home.
Great. And then what would you tell someone that would be thinking of using Dalinghaus for a project?
I would say, like, as great as Dalinghaus was, I would always suggest like shop around, but I would be hard pressed for people to find somebody to outcompete Dalinghaus. Yeah. And even more emphasis on the fact that literally getting a straight answer and getting like, this is our, from the first time we saw Phil, we got one price.
Yeah. And
when we brought in other companies, like, well, they're thinking about maybe doing this, we worked things around to where it's like, well, okay, well, we could take a pier. Once you work with the engineer, taking a pier out here, maybe less concrete replacement here. They're very open with working with the price. I can't imagine somebody finding any other company that could beat Dalinghaus.
Well, great. Well, I sure appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with us. And if you ever need us, you shouldn't.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.